Hey everybody, this is Dark Garsman. We're back with another video. So I'm completely exhausted here. I haven't had slept much in the last couple of days. My dog just got out of surgery, so needless to say, the dog bugs me every 30 minutes to an hour to be paid attention to. But what we're going to try to do is do a video, even though I'm tired. I kind of want to get these ideals out there, that way I can get some feedback on them, so that why I can't do anything else like program, I can at least read your guys' comments on my phone and try to compile some kind of design for the accelerator that we're going to be implementing here pretty soon. Anyway, so what we got in front of us, so this is probably not new info, but we have the original accelerator design. Accelerator design, basically a box or rectangle shape, above some kind of minimum design, underneath some kind of maximum design, that has a controller that does everything: energy input, item output, and then fires the particle accelerator, or fires the particle that then accelerates through the tube. Particle basically detects the tube shape, which has to be one block on each side, basically 4 sides. Didn't care about the corners. I think one of the versions it only detected for 3 sides. I don't remember this exactly, but I do remember working at the code at one point, but too tired to remember it. So detected side, didn't detect the side, would explode. If it did detect all sides, it would get some energy build up, would accelerate around. Every time I hit a corner, it would lose energy. Every time I went through basically gain energy. Once it hit 100%, it was collected by the controller. You got antimatter out of return. You could then do something to get strange matter. I forget exactly how the process goes. I do plan to read the code here pretty soon, especially since I can't do anything other than pay attention to my dog and other small tasks. But this will all work in that kind of order and pattern. Generally how the original version worked. Now this version, I don't really want to implement this again how it was. There was several problems with it. A, was not very flexible. You basically were stuck building pretty much the same 4 designs over and over again. You either built the 50 meter one, 100 meter one, or some modification of those two, either in a rectangle shape, or I think somebody figured out how to do a linear version of it at one point, but it was like massive. So people stuck to pretty much the same general design, especially since there was a blueprint included that did like a 50 meter version that you got right off the back that just functioned and you didn't have to do any work with it. This also had some chunk loading problems. You had to basically chunk load the whole shape or didn't work. Had issues with air pockets inside that would cause things like bats to spawn, different creatures that would cause the particle to explode. Any type of damage to this caused the particle to explode. Anything in general just didn't really work well. Controller, you couldn't really get inputs on it very easily. It was very difficult to get it placed. And just overall, it just kind of sucked. Not very flexible, everything else. So we want to get with a new design. The new design, I'm trying to somewhat make realistic, but I understand at the same time you cannot achieve realism with something that's Minecraft based. As well, I'm not going to be able to make it realistic for the very reason that I don't really want to make it realistic. I want to have something that's highly visual, looks very beautiful, very flexible, which accelerators are not exactly flexible. They have pretty much fixed designs to them from as far as I can see. And I've been doing some research. I'm not an expert by far. I'm not even going to try to even claim I even know what the hell I'm doing, because for the most part, this stuff is way beyond my knowledge base. But what I can see from a lot of designs is you have some kind of input, which they use an electron gun in this design. They have some kind of ring here, which they use to either accelerate or store the particle. And then they've got exit points, which they usually use for their experiments or testing. Different designs use different style of layouts. For example, some of them have accelerating rings, some of them have storage rings over here. Various different ways for the particles to travel, light, laser, whatever. You can see here multiple different beams, multiple different things, long belts, electron gun, basically different styles of doing this. But for the most part, the design I'm going to look at is something like this. You have an injection point, you have your accelerator, then you have your extraction particle point. Basically, is what we're going to look at. Now, this does have a few problems with it. Mainly, I have not figured out a way to do collisions just yet with this design. So when you look at this here, we have basically the same style, except it's a box shape. I will be implementing a circle-based, or rather angle-based, because I won't force you guys to make circles if you don't want to. I won't force you to make ovals or whatever. It'll just be like, as long as the tubes aim in the general direction, you'll be able to do something. So we'll be making something that does allow curves in the future, but that's going to be a later design, and it will not be designed to replace the original version. It'll be something that we'll include as an extra that you guys can build and whatever. But it'll work generally the same way this will work. You'll have magnets here that will be designed to handle a few different functions. I haven't figured this out 100%, but the main thing it'll do is it'll just accelerate the particle. This will not be done in a logical based way, so these will mainly just exist as a calculatable point, because the ideal is we want to make the accelerator very low tick rate, highly performant, not require chunk loading, which means we're going to be catching everything. So once you build this, it'll detect everything, and it'll just treat these as a fixed data point that based on the amount of distance and spacing between it is how your particle behaves, and it'll plot that out, and it'll just simulate everything. But you'll build magnets. The distance between the magnets will matter to some extent, but there'll be a minimum maximum point by which you can stick the magnets in there. So you'll have a minimum by which any distance underneath that will not really matter much. So if you try to put the magnets next to each other, you'll gain no benefit as if you had put them 3 meters from each other. So there'll be some kind of system like that, and there'll be a maximum by which once you get beyond this maximum, the particle will start to lose energy. It'll still function though, so you could have gaps in your accelerator in case you want to do some weird design. I'll allow it. The ideal is I'll keep it as simple as possible and predictable. That way you guys can build whatever you do want to build. Outside the magnets here, you'll be building a tube. The tube will act pretty much like the inside of the other design, but the difference will be you only have to build one tube. The tube will have glass, so you can see the particle go through there, but it will just act as a vacuum chamber pretty much for the particle to travel down. So you'll go the whole distance. We will be using it like a wire as well, so that'll be our excuse lore-wise of why the magnets can get power, so you don't have to put energy in here. I kind of decided on that. It took me a while to figure that one out, but what we'll do is that you can put energy inputs on here, and they'll power it. I'll probably even allow you to put energy on any point along here, so it'll just function. You can put energy in multiple different locations, whatever, it doesn't really matter to me. I'll set it up to be as flexible as possible. But you'll get the tube, you get the magnets, particle will go through here. It'll be shot out by an injection tube. So this will be something similar. You'll have to build another tube section coming off here. And what will probably happen is there'll be some kind of box shape here, multi-block structure, that'll fire the original particle out. It'll go out here, start to accelerate around. Now, when I'm talking about accelerating, by the way, this will all be simulated. So there'll be a particle that'll be simulated. Client side will then be rendered so you can see it kind of going up, but it'll be simulated of how it goes through here. So it'll fire off, go through, around. It'll keep building up speed, and eventually at some fixed point, it'll go through the collector tube and do whatever it's supposed to do here. Now, when it comes to the collector tube, what we'll probably end up doing with this, since it's something I still got to figure out at the collision part, is we'll probably make it so that way you can have two loops, and then you can be able to push both the particles into the collector at the same amount of time. What we'll do is make sure these are linked to each other, so that way it ensures that both particles are up to speed before it collides them, and then this will be controlled in some kind of manner or way to get your output at it. Right now, the only outputs we're going to be aiming for is antimatter and strange matter. Strange matter will act like our UU matter. That'll probably be added later. And antimatter will, of course, be used exactly what it's used for, which is making the weapons in ICBM. So that'll be one of the main uses out of this. We'll probably figure out some other uses for this, or various other things you can do with it. For the moment, it'll be antimatter. When it comes to ejection tube as well, you can put energy connections here, input hatches here. I'm going to be trying to do a hatch-based system. That way you can put as many inputs and outputs as you want on this machine, and many energy inputs as possible. That we have a very flexible design, so you can kind of get that figured out. Outside of that, there's not a huge amount difference beyond what I've already said. There will be a remote system for this, so you will not be controlling this from the injection tube. You'll have a terminal, although in reality you could put the terminal right next to the injection tube. I don't really care. But it'll work something like the ICBM-2 remote launch system. You'll have a connection point, then you'll have a CPU, and then the CPU will then connect to a terminal. So you could have multiple terminals connected to one CPU. You can also have multiple accelerators connected to that same CPU. That way you can be controlling multiple of these at a time, automating them, whatever. There'll be a whole bunch of different equipment. Some of this stuff will probably overlap with a fission reactor too, so that we're not building specialized machinery for the CPU stuff. So the same control system used for the accelerator will probably be the same control system used for the fission reactor, fusion reactor, etc. But that's the design so far. I think I've probably missed some things, but too tired to remember them all. So I'll probably come back in here later after I've updated this and finish this off and do another video. But that should do for the moment. So see you guys later, and I'll be back probably with more content.